The sun streamed in through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the countertop as I flipped the pancakes. It was one of those bright April mornings that made everything seem perfect. Ethan sat at the table, his laughter filling the air as he talked about his weekend plans with Jacob. His excitement was contagious, but I felt a storm brewing inside me, a feeling I couldn't shake off. "Are you listening, Soph?" Ethan looked up, his eyes sparkling with joy. "Of course I am." I forced a smile, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in thoughts of Jacob. The contrast between Ethan's cheerful chatter and the chaos in my heart was jarring. I loved Ethan. I truly did. But why did Jacob's name twist my stomach in knots? As I set down the plate of pancakes, I couldn't help but remember my first yoga class. It had started as a simple way to relax, but it quickly turned into something much more complicated. I had walked in with the intention to clear my mind, but there he was, Jacob, his presence electric and captivating. "Hey, you actually made it." Jacob had grinned, his eyes dancing with mischief. "Yeah, I thought I'd give it a try," I replied, trying to keep my cool as we chatted. The playful banter between us blurred the lines of friendship in a way that left me breathless. Every smile, every glance lingered longer than it should have. Back in the kitchen, Ethan continued to share plans for the weekend. "Jacob and I are thinking of hitting the trails. Want to join us?" I hesitated, unsure if I could bear to watch Ethan and Jacob together. "Maybe," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the weight of my growing feelings for Jacob pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. How could I feel this way about someone else when I had built a life with Ethan? The guilt washed over me like a cold wave. As I took a sip of my coffee, I stared out the window, lost in thoughts of Jacob. Was my attraction to him a sign of something deeper? Or was it just an escape from the routine I had grown accustomed to? The more I pondered, the more conflicted I became. Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts again. "Sophie, are you okay? You seem a little distant." "I'm fine, just thinking," I said, forcing myself to focus on him. But the truth was, my mind was racing with questions. What did I really want? Did I want to keep living this lie? Or was it time to confront my feelings? "Do you think you'll ever try yoga with us?" he asked, his playful tone lifting my spirits, if only for a moment. "Maybe," I said, a hint of a smile returning to my lips. But I knew my heart wasn't in it. The thought of being in a room with Jacob again made my pulse quicken, but I couldn't let Ethan see the turmoil within me. He deserved better than a partner who was torn between two lives. I placed the last pancake on the plate and turned to face Ethan. "What do you love most about going out on the trails?" I asked, trying to redirect the conversation. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his eyes lighting up. "It's the freedom, you know? Just being out there, surrounded by nature. It makes me feel alive." Alive. That word echoed in my mind. Did I still feel alive? Or had I become numb, caught in the web of expectations and routine? I wanted to scream, to tell Ethan the truth about my feelings, but the words stuck in my throat. As I watched him eat, I felt the weight of my secret pressing down on me. I was trapped between two worlds, one filled with comfort, and the other with an intoxicating thrill. Could there be a way to reconcile these feelings? Or was I destined to choose between love and desire? The question lingered heavily in the air, and I knew that my answer would change everything. As I sit on the couch, the sunlight pours through the window, warming my skin. I close my eyes and think back to the early days of my relationship with Ethan. Those moments feel like a distant dream now. I remember how we would laugh together, sharing our hopes and dreams. "Sophie, do you think we'll travel the world one day?" Ethan had asked me once, his eyes sparkling with excitement. I had smiled, nodding eagerly. "Of course, just you and me, exploring new places." Back then, everything felt so bright and full of promise. We shared endless conversations about our future, and I loved the way Ethan made me feel safe. He was my rock, always there with a comforting word or a warm embrace. But now, as I reflect on those early days, I can't help but feel a shift in my heart. The warmth I once felt with Ethan has faded, replaced by a dullness that weighs heavy on my chest. I glance over at Ethan, who is busy reading a book. He looks content, completely unaware of the turmoil inside me. I wish I could feel that same contentment, but instead, I feel trapped. My mind wanders back to the first yoga class I attended, the day I met Jacob. That day was a turning point in my life, one I never expected. I remember walking into the studio, feeling nervous yet excited. The room was filled with soft music and the scent of lavender. Then Jacob walked in. He had a bright smile and an energy that was magnetic. Our eyes met, and I felt a spark I hadn't felt in a long time. During class, we exchanged playful glances, and I could tell he was just as intrigued by me as I was by him. After class, we found ourselves chatting, the conversation flowing effortlessly. "You have a great energy," Jacob had said, his eyes locked on mine. I felt my cheeks flush. "Thanks. I could say the same about you." In that moment, I felt alive again, like a part of me that had been sleeping was finally waking up. But now, that excitement feels like a guilty secret. I find myself thinking about Jacob more and more, and it scares me. Is my longing for him a sign of something deeper? Or is it just a fleeting escape from my routine life with Ethan? I feel like I am living a double life, caught between the safety of my relationship with Ethan and the thrilling pull toward Jacob. One evening, I confided in my best friend, Mia. "I just don't know what to do, Mia. I love Ethan, but I can't stop thinking about Jacob." Her brow furrowed with concern. "Sophie, you need to be honest with yourself. Are you happy with Ethan?" Her question hit me hard. Happiness used to be what I felt whenever I was with him. Now, it feels like a distant memory. "I don't know," I admitted, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "It's just, things feel different now." Mia nodded, understanding my struggle. "Maybe it's time to figure out what you really want. Don't ignore your feelings, Sophie." As I lay awake that night, I couldn't shake the weight of her words. I thought about Ethan's smile, how he always made me feel secure, but the thought of Jacob brought a rush of excitement that I hadn't felt in years. I tossed and turned, struggling to find clarity amidst the chaos of my emotions. Days passed, and I found myself caught in a spiral of guilt and longing. I would watch Ethan laugh at a joke or smile at a memory, and I felt a pang of guilt for even thinking of Jacob. Yet, the connection I felt with Jacob was undeniable. Each time we met, it was like fireworks igniting a part of me that had been dormant for far too long. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had to confront my feelings. Was I ready to face the truth? To risk everything I had built with Ethan for a chance at something new? The lines between love and desire were becoming blurred, and I knew that I could no longer live in this state of confusion. As the sun set that evening, I took a deep breath, hoping to find the answers I so desperately needed. Would I choose the comfort of my past or the thrill of the unknown? The battle within me raged on, and I was left wondering which path would lead to my true happiness. I woke up one morning, the sun streaming through the curtains, and the weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest. Ethan was still asleep beside me, his peaceful face a stark contrast to the storm swirling in my mind. I glanced at my phone, the messages from Jacob lighting up the screen, reminding me of the life I was trying to keep hidden. I felt torn, caught between two worlds. As I made breakfast, the smell of pancakes filled the air. I flipped them over, trying to focus on the task at hand. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, his hair tousled and eyes still sleepy. "Morning, Soph. What's for breakfast?" "Pancakes," I replied, forcing a smile. "Your favorite." He grinned, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of what we used to share. But that flicker quickly faded as I thought of Jacob. The way he looked at me, the way he laughed, it ignited something inside me that I couldn't ignore. After breakfast, the tension hung in the air. Ethan was excitedly sharing his plans for the weekend with Jacob. "We're going to hike up to the lake. It should be great," he said, enthusiasm radiating from him. "Sounds fun," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Inside, I was screaming. I wanted to be the one spending time with Jacob, sharing those adventures, not just hearing about them. Later that day, I found myself scrolling through my memories, recalling the first yoga class where Jacob had first caught my eye. I had been nervous, trying to impress him with my poses, but it turned into something much more than that. We had spent the entire class exchanging playful glances, and I could still hear the laughter we shared afterward. "Hey, you were pretty good back there," Jacob had said, his eyes sparkling. "We should practice together sometime." That invitation had ignited a fire in me, a fire I thought I had extinguished. Now, I felt guilty for wanting more than what I had with Ethan. Was my longing for Jacob a sign of something deeper? Or was it just an escape from my reality? As the evening approached, Jacob texted me, asking if I wanted to meet up. I felt a rush of excitement mixed with anxiety. I glanced at Ethan, who was completely unaware of the turmoil inside me. I knew I had to go. I had to see Jacob. When I arrived at the little cafe where we often met, I found Jacob already waiting for me. The moment our eyes met, a thrill ran through me. "You made it," he said, a smile breaking across his face. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, trying to sound casual. But inside, my heart raced. We talked for hours, sharing dreams and fears. The more we talked, the deeper our connection felt. Jacob spoke about his hopes for the future, his passion for adventure, and I couldn't help but be drawn to him. "What about you, Sophie? What do you want?" he asked, looking straight into my eyes. I hesitated, my heart pounding. I want to feel alive again," I admitted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Jacob reached across the table, his hand brushing against mine. "Then why not go after it? You deserve to be happy." His words struck a chord deep within me. I felt the weight of my choices pressing down harder than ever. Ethan's unwavering trust in me was a heavy cloak, while Jacob's wild spirit was a call to freedom I couldn't ignore. As I drove home that night, my heart felt like it was being pulled in two directions. I could feel the ache of my heart as I thought of Ethan waiting for me, completely unaware of the chaos inside me. But then, there was Jacob, who made me feel seen and understood in a way I had never experienced before. I parked the car, staring at our home. My heart ached with the realization that I was living a lie. How could I continue like this? How could I keep pretending everything was okay when I was so far from who I wanted to be? That night, as I lay in bed beside Ethan, I felt the walls of my life closing in around me. The secrets I held were suffocating, and I knew I was nearing a breaking point. I needed to make a choice that would change everything. The air felt heavy as I sat in the small cafe where Jacob and I often met. It was the same place where I had first felt the spark between us. But today, it felt different. Today, I was afraid. Our mutual friend, Mia, had stumbled upon my secret. I could see her face in my mind, the look of shock in her eyes when I had tried to brush it off. "Sophie, are you really seeing Jacob?" she had asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. I had laughed nervously and changed the subject. But inside, the truth twisted like a knife. I stared into my coffee, the steam rising and mingling with my thoughts. I had to make a choice soon. Every moment felt like a countdown, as if time itself was warning me that I could not keep living this way. The fear of losing Ethan had me paralyzed. He was my rock, my safe harbor, and the thought of shattering that security terrified me. Yet, a part of my heart ached for the freedom Jacob offered. As if reading my mind, Jacob walked into the cafe, his presence lighting up the room. He spotted me right away and made his way over, a smile playing on his lips. "Hey, I was starting to think you'd ghosted me," he joked, sliding into the chair across from mine. "Just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile. My heart raced. I knew we needed to talk, and yet the words felt stuck in my throat. Jacob leaned in, his expression turning serious. "Sophie, what's going on? You seem distant." I took a deep breath, knowing I had to be honest. "Mia found out about us. She doesn't know what to do with that information. I feel like I'm running out of time to make a decision." His eyes softened, and he reached across the table, taking my hand. "You know I'd never pressure you, but you have to think about what you really want. Do you want to keep living this double life?" I looked down at our hands, my heart racing. "I don't know, Jacob. Part of me loves my life with Ethan. He's always been there for me. But then there's you." My voice trailed off, and Jacob squeezed my hand gently. "I'm not asking you to choose me right now," he said, his tone soothing. "But you owe it to yourself to be honest about your feelings. You can't keep pretending forever." His words hung in the air like a heavy weight. I felt the truth of them. My heart was torn. I cared for Ethan, but I longed for something more with Jacob. The thrill of our moments together brought a spark back to my life, a feeling I thought I had lost. What if I tell Ethan? What if I ruin everything? Jacob leaned back, studying me. What if you don't? What if you keep hiding this and it eats you alive? You have to weigh your happiness against your security. It's not easy, but you deserve to be happy, Sophie. I looked into his eyes, searching for answers. What if I lose you too? You won't lose me unless you choose to, he said, his voice steady. Just think about what you truly want. I'll be here, no matter what you decide. As I sat there, I felt a surge of emotions. The choice loomed over me like a storm cloud, dark and ominous. I had to decide whether to confess everything to Ethan or continue the charade. Could I live with myself if I chose to keep lying? "Jacob," I said slowly, my heart pounding. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," he replied softly. "Just remember that whatever you choose, it should be for you." As we finished our coffee, I realized I was at a crossroads. My heart was heavy with uncertainty, but I knew one thing for sure. I had to confront the truth about my feelings. I had to figure out what I truly wanted before it was too late. The clock was ticking, and I could feel the weight of my decision pressing down on me. The air felt thick with tension as I sat across from Ethan at the kitchen table. The sunlight streamed in, illuminating the space that once felt so warm and inviting. Now, it felt like a cage. I had made my choice, and the reality of it crashed down on me like a wave, leaving me gasping for breath. "I just don't understand, Sophie," Ethan said, his voice shaking slightly. He looked at me with confusion etched on his face, the kind of confusion that turned to hurt. "You had everything. Why would you throw it all away?" I swallowed hard. The words stuck in my throat. "Ethan, it's not that simple. I didn't mean to hurt you." I could feel the weight of my guilt pressing on my chest. "Then what is it?" he pressed, his eyes searching mine for answers. "Was it Jacob? Is that what this is about?" I didn't want to answer that. The truth felt like a knife in my heart. "It's about me," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've lost myself in all of this. I don't know who I am anymore." Ethan leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "You think running to him will help you find yourself? You're just running away from your problems." I shook my head, tears welling in my eyes. "I didn't run to Jacob. I ran away from the life we built together. I feel trapped." The silence stretched between us, and in that moment, I could see the cracks forming in the foundation of our relationship. "I thought we were happy," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I was enough for you." "You are enough," I insisted, my heart aching. "But I need to figure out who I am without you. I thought I could love you and still explore this part of myself. But I was wrong." Ethan's face softened, his hurt slowly morphing into a look of understanding. "You're saying you want a break?" I hesitated, the weight of my decision heavy in the air. "I don't know what I want right now. I just know I can't keep pretending." He nodded slowly, looking down at the table. "So, what does this mean for us?" "I think we need time," I replied, my voice steadying. "Time to figure out if we can find our way back to each other, or if we're meant to go our separate ways." Ethan sighed deeply, the sound heavy with resignation. "I wish you would have told me sooner. I wish we could have talked about this before it got so complicated." "Me too," I said, my heart breaking for the pain I had caused him. "But I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could manage it." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "I need some space, Sophie. I can't do this right now." "Okay," I whispered, feeling the finality of his words. As he stood to leave, the silence in the room felt deafening. I watched him walk away, knowing that this moment would change everything. Once he was gone, I sank into a chair, my heart racing. The reality of my choices hit me like a flood. I had hurt Ethan, the person who had stood by me through everything. I felt like a ghost in my own life, haunted by the decisions I had made. In the stillness of the empty house, I knew I had to face the truth about myself. I needed to find the pieces of me I had lost along the way. My mind drifted to Jacob, the excitement and passion he brought into my life. But could I truly embrace that without feeling the weight of deceit? As night fell, I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling over the screen. I hesitated, unsure of what to say. Finally, I typed a message to Jacob. "Can we talk? I need to figure things out." With a deep breath, I hit send. The future felt uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. I was ready to explore what it meant to be true to myself, even if that path was fraught with challenges. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew I had to try. As I stood at the edge of my new reality, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. The weight of my choices hung heavy on my shoulders, but I was ready to seek redemption and find out who I truly was. My heart still ached from the past, but I was determined to move forward. One sunny afternoon, Jacob and I met at our favorite cafe. The air was filled with the smell of fresh coffee and baked goods, but all I could focus on was him. As I sat across from him, I noticed the way his eyes sparkled when he spoke about his dreams. It was different from the conversations I had with Ethan. "Do you think we can really make this work?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jacob leaned in closer, his expression serious. "I believe we can, but we need to be honest with each other. No more hiding." His words struck a chord deep within me. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. I want that too. I want to be open about how I feel. Our conversations began to change. We talked about everything, our hopes, our fears, and the mistakes we had made. Each moment we shared brought us closer, and I felt the walls around my heart start to crumble. One evening, while watching the sunset, I turned to Jacob and said, "You make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years." He smiled softly, his eyes filled with warmth. "I feel the same way about you, Sophie. You inspire me to be better." With each passing day, I started to reclaim my sense of self. I began practicing yoga again, finding peace in the flow of movement. I rediscovered how to breathe, how to let go of the shadows of my past. Each class was a reminder that I could be free, that I could embrace my passions without the weight of deceit. One night, after a particularly intense yoga session, I met Jacob at the park. The stars twinkled above us, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. We sat on a bench, sharing stories and laughter. "Remember when we first met?" he asked, a playful smile on his face. "You were so nervous, trying to impress everyone with your poses." I laughed, recalling that day. I was terrified. I thought everyone would judge me, but then you were there, making it all feel less serious. Jacob's gaze softened. "You've come so far since then, Sophie. You're stronger than you know." His words wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I wanted to believe him. "I still have a long way to go," I replied, feeling a mix of vulnerability and hope. "Yes, but it's a journey worth taking," he said, taking my hand in his. "Let's take it together." In that moment, I realized that love could be both exhilarating and painful. It was a journey of growth, a path that forced me to confront the truth about myself. I was learning to embrace both the light and the dark parts of my heart. As we sat there, hand in hand, I felt a sense of freedom. I was no longer hiding from my feelings, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. I could see a future where I could be true to myself, where I could love openly and honestly. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know that I'm here for you," Jacob said, his voice steady and reassuring. His words filled me with hope. "And I'm here for you too, Jacob. Together, we can figure this out." As we watched the stars twinkle above, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. I was ready to embrace my journey, ready to learn, to grow, and to love without fear. The past was part of me, but it no longer defined me. I was becoming who I was meant to be, and I couldn't wait to see where this path would lead. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about a moment when vulnerability led to a breakthrough in your life, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.